Thank you, Owen. Our very last speaker tonight is Annie Benton, and she's a lecturer and researcher at CUSP. Her research focuses on active transport, particularly walking, cycling, pedestrian and bicycle planning, and urban design. She has worked for state and local government and is an honorary sustainability advisor for Bicycling Western Australia. So please join me in welcoming Annie.
Thank you so much for having me here. As the organiser said, I research in urban design and sustainable transport, primarily walking and cycling, and then also the health impacts of urban form and also our transport choices. So a little bit different than what we've heard tonight, but I think it's a really great complement and a really great setup. Also, I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to take you on a rocket ship of an urban design needs for people and cycling. Walking and cycling, and as Professor Newman said, at CUSP we do concentrate on ideas of hope. So I think in a West Australian context we can pretty much understand what sort of infrastructure we need for walking and cycling. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on networks and the urban design sort of elements of it. So why do we need to plan for walking and cycling? I think most of the great people in this room know this. Climate change mitigation, health and safety, and that's both environmental health and also human health, and also safety needs. Having people walking and cycling on our streets provides that incidental eyes on the streets, to quote Jane Jacobs, so that there's people there at all times of day and night, so that we do have safer streets and safer cities and safer suburbs. Equity is particularly important, and I think it's something that we often forget in a wealthy state such as ours, but some people are captive walkers or captive cyclists. They have no other choice. We have a project in India, and this is particularly important with what we're focusing on there. And also economic capital. Cities are increasingly competing with each other for capital and for economic development and for good people, for highly educated people, and part of that is having vibrant public spaces, and our walking and cycling networks are an integral part of that. So in Australia, I think we all know this, we do have an obesity epidemic. We rank about 21st in the world and 3rd amongst English-speaking countries, and most of this is because the adult population in Australia is not getting enough physical activity to remain healthy. Residents living in cities have been found to be more physically active than those living outside major cities, and that is particularly because of the walking and cycling infrastructure, having that incidental activity, and that's where I focus on. And this is costing us a lot of money. Medibank Private estimated to be about $13.8 billion a year. So walking and cycling are widely recognised as the healthiest ways to get around our cities for, as I said, public or human health and also environmental health. So the way I look at planning and for walking and cycling, both urban planning and transport planning, is about providing an invitation to the city. Yes, it's about encouraging physical activity by minimising the needs and distance required to travel, but it's also about the infrastructure we provide and the design of that infrastructure, the design of our city centres, the design of the destinations. We have to make destinations that people want to walk and cycle to, are able to walk and cycle to. So just quickly, some of the health impacts of transport. I think we pretty much know in this room that the conventional model for residential locations has resulted in car-dependent locations and inactive travel. The map I've got up here is from a Commonwealth Department of Transport study. It's Bull Creek Station, which some of you may be familiar with, and it's showing the pedestrian catchment around there. So people that live within 400 metres as the crow flies of that station, but still drive there, and it's looking at why do they drive there. It's essentially, if you follow those yellow lines all the way to the station, you can see, for example, the one on the bottom, this person may only live 260 metres from the station as the crow flies, or as we design cities. But in fact, they're about 1,500 metres from the station. So they're forced to other modes of transport. So it's thinking about how we design at that ground eye level. And these areas have been increasingly linked to obesity and other chronic illnesses, including mental health, loneliness, and those sorts of issues, than higher density mixed-use areas. Importantly, I think is coming out is there's a lot of research coming out about the economic value, and economic value is improved by healthy environments that encourage active travel. I've just put up 2 studies here, but there's many of them that you can look at, and I won't dwell on this, but I just want to highlight that it is having significant economic benefits. Copenhagen, the city of Copenhagen, which I'll go into a little bit more detail, has found that every bicycle kilometre travelled within the city gives them effectively 25 US cents, which doesn't sound a lot, but if you've got a lot of kilometres travelled by bicycle, that can add up significantly. Whereas every kilometre driven actually costs the city 16 cents. So getting back to the invitation is about providing appropriate urban spaces, as I said, destinations. It's also about the infrastructure, the networks, and the cycleways, the pathways, etc., and also the furniture, how the buildings relate to people, how the footpaths relate to people, how the benches relate to people, etc. So how do we do this? There's many different ways. I'm just going to concentrate on 3 within this short time frame. Continuous networks, so these are providing access. Destinations, making places that are accessible for people, and making authentic and interesting places for people to go. So networks, these need to be safe and continuous with the infrastructure. So the infrastructure continues throughout the whole area, connecting important destinations, residences to jobs, residences to transport, transport to jobs, etc. It needs to be very convenient, easy for people to use. They need to be able to understand it. It needs to be legible for them. There's a number of ways to do this, and that's with separate infrastructure, both separating cyclists from pedestrians, but also separating them from cars, or shared, where you've got principal shared paths, such as the example from Brisbane at the bottom, or shared in terms of sharing the space with people, cars and pedestrians in high trafficked or pedestrian trafficked areas. So I'm just going to look at one example of separate networks, and Copenhagen is quite a famous example. Some of you in the room may be familiar with it. In 1960, they had about 210 kilometres of separated networks for cycling. I'm talking about cycling in this example. By 210, they had close to 400 kilometres of cycle tracks and lanes, so that's the separated but on-road infrastructure. And then 43 kilometres of green cycle routes, which is completely separated from cars and pedestrians. They have a plan to add about 65 kilometres of cycle tracks and to eventually have 110 kilometres of green cycle routes. So just flicking through, this is the cycle track network, so this is on the road, what they look like, the green cycle routes, so this is completely separated, 2-directional. And now they're building superhighways. So the first one opened in April. Superhighways for bikes, that is. So the first one opened in April, the second one has just opened. This is what the network should look like. It's a metro-wide plan, so it encompasses the city centre, the city of Copenhagen, but also 20 local authorities around it. Part of that, they've increased the, not only having the paths, but made all the transport infrastructure work for cycling. So this is a greenway route, which basically, if you travel between 17 and 20 kilometres per hour on your cycle, which on these separated paths is not hard, the lights will constantly be green for you. So you're just moving continuously through the system. They've widened the network through integrating it with other transport systems. So this is allowing bicycles on the public transport, on trains and metros, but then also regulating the taxis have to be able to carry at least 2 bikes. So this is making your system much wider. It says I've got 8 minutes up here. And so their mode share is about 30% in the metro area, and they're having a major problem with congestion. So about in the major streets, we've got 36,000 bicycles per day on some of those major streets. So you can see it is really clogging up. And just for comparison, Perth is about 1.3 for the cycling in the metro area. But we're growing. Between 2009 and 2011, I think we grew about 43%. So we can give ourselves a pat on the back, but we do have, some inspiration to look towards. And part of this, they have developed a pedestrian network. The bar graph is showing the increase in pedestrians, and then the maps are showing the network growing. So just quickly, shared streets and networks. These are happening all around the world. These are happening in high pedestrian areas, so city centres, shopping centres, and then also low traffic locations, so residential areas where you want to make a safe residential street. The photos are again from Copenhagen, but as I said, they're happening all around the world. This is Kensington High Street, which is probably one of the most famous examples in London. So you've got the before and the after. Exhibition Road, which is a slightly different example because it's taking a very busy traffic street, which is actually a civic heart, with the art galleries and the exhibition centres, and turning it into a shared network. So you can see these are shared with all modes of transport. So cycling, walking, and buses, and also and cars. So everybody's welcome, but you have to move at eye level so you can make eye contact with each other. Auckland has embarked on a $60 million scheme, doing this throughout their city centre, and part of this is that they want to grow their CBD population to 50,000 people. So this is that increasing, cities competing for each other by improving with each other for people by improving their public realm. So these are some examples from there. And we are doing it in Perth. This is Bayview Terrace in Claremont. The other portion of that is creating accessible destinations, so high-density, mixed-use areas, and particularly those local grocery stores, which we used to do so well, bringing those back in. They have been shown to reduce obesity. I'm just going to move really quickly because I know we're running out of time. So part of that is creating good urban design, compact mixed-use centres, public transport access, fine-grained architecture, public space, and also the infrastructure. But most importantly, it needs to be safe. These need to be safe areas, both safe actually, we need to be safe when we're walking and cycling, but also perceived as safe. There's no point doing the best design in the world if people don't think it's safe. And they need to be authentic and interesting. Design plays a crucial role in walkability and cycling. It's the city at eye level. So we can plan, most transport plan happens from above, but walking and cycling needs to be planned from the eye level. What are people actually going to see? What are they going to feel? How do they move through the space? What speed do they move at? And this is happening all around the world with creative city public space responses. I might stop it here just for time, but I do have a couple examples I can run through. What do you think? Keep going? Okay. This is happening around the world in New York. As part of a Gale Architect study, the City of New York and NY. And then they conduct baseline surveys of pedestrian counts and activity counts. And they found that the area had inadequate infrastructure, lack of space for walking and cycling, was unwelcoming, and lack of public open space. So they focused on low-cost solutions such as road diets, shrinking the roads down, and urban acupuncture, so localised small interventions that are quick and easy to do. I'll show you the pretty pictures of that. So what I want to highlight here is how quickly they're doing it. So the top is April, the bottom is September. So they're just going in and doing these quick solutions. Times Square had severe pedestrian overcrowding or pedlock. And again, they did these quick, easy solutions. We are also doing it here in Perth, so we're not left behind. I was part of a study that Curtin University Sustainability Policy did with Curtin, Murdoch and UWA students. It was a class with Gale Architects, City of Perth, and what was DPI and is now the Department of Planning. So this was a before and after study. We did one in 1994, one in 2009, looking at the pedestrian and cycling environment and the urban design of the area. So between that time, the city did do a lot of things, widening sidewalks, implementation of two-way streets, chairs on the sidewalk, cafe chairs, trees, etc., making the design more pedestrian friendly. So they did see an increase in pedestrian traffic. So you can see the widening of the sidewalks. They did find that the cycling network, once you got to the city, was not so great. It was incomplete throughout parts. So it has some great parts, the regional parts that are connected, but once you get there, it's a little bit tricky. So before and afters. So since this has been done in 2009, the city has come out with a cycle plan, which is connecting the links here, the map, and also an urban design strategy. So my question for you is, we can do this in city centres. We know how to do this in city centres. We've got the design, we know how to do it. How do we do it in suburban shopping centres, in residential locations where we live, and in railway stations?
Thank you, Annie. I'm really sorry, I have to apologize on behalf of Perth Green Drinks, but we've run out of time, so we're not going to be able to do any panel discussion tonight. And I know Owen has to leave at 7 on the dot. So I'm just going to wrap up with some thank yous, and then if everyone just wants to head out through that door, and we will enjoy some refreshments. And we will have 2 of our speakers, I think, joining us after, so you can ask them questions one-on-one. I want to thank Flavia, who is a volunteer and who organizes tonight. Be sure to tell her how much you enjoyed it. She's up there in the back by the door. We have 2 other key volunteers who really help out a lot. One of them is Lorca, right here, hello, and up the back. Camerawoman up the back alley. I'm just gonna say everyone, and then we'll have a big round of applause at the end, because I know if you're like me, you're probably ready for a drink with us soon as well. I want to thank our 3 speakers who are still here. You guys, extraordinary. We could be here all, for another year, and we still wouldn't know everything that you guys know. But thank you for sharing a little bit about your knowledge. Also, Central Institute of Technology again for the venue and the food that we're going to be enjoying, and Little Creatures for the beverages. And last but not least, I want to thank everybody just for coming, because obviously Perth Green Drinks wouldn't be anything without you guys here. So thank you so much, and please join. Let's continue the conversation outside. So thank you.